Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Crunching Your Growth. I'm your host, Phil Masiello, and today we're talking about a problem a lot of brilliant founders and CEOs secretly have. You're excellent at what you do, but the market doesn't know you exist. So my guest today is here to fix that. David Newman is a CSP, a certified speaking professional, a wildly in-demand keynote speaker, and the author of a new book, Market Eminence, 22 Strategies to Build a Bold Personal Brand, Becoming a Business Celebrity and Drive Unstoppable Growth. He works with founders, mid-market CEOs, and professional service firms who want to play bigger, grow faster, and become a category of one. David's also the author of Do It Marketing, Do It Speaking, and Do It Selling. His work has been featured in places like the New York Times, Forbes, CNBC, Entrepreneur, and more. And if that's not enough, he hosts The Selling Show, a podcast ranked in the top 1% globally with over 500 episodes, helping experts and executives sell more faster and with less stress. So we're going to get into what makes market eminence and what that really means, how to stop being a best kept secret, and what it actually takes to become the obvious choice in your category. So please help me welcome David Newman to the show. David.
Phil, great to be here. Thank you for having me on. That was a killer introduction. I think the show might be over because it's only going to go downhill from here.
I can't take credit for it. My folks built that, but
There you go.
they can build it so that I can repeat it. But yeah, David, interesting career, interesting background. Certainly something that people always want to do is to get themselves out there, because even if you're a founder and you're building a personal brand, you're sort of tied to the brand that you're selling anyway. So they sort of go together. One's going to help the other one. But why don't you take us back? Give us a little background into you, who you are, what you've done in the past, and then how you got here and why you got here.
Sure. So, like most entrepreneurs, or not most, like some entrepreneurs, I had a legitimate job. Phil, I had a paycheck, I had benefits, dude, I had health insurance. I mean, come on. And this was like the early 2000s, and life was great. And so from the 1990s to the 2000s, I had a 10-year corporate career doing corporate consulting, etc. And then January 1st, 2002, I said, you know what? I made a lot of money for other people. I think I can do this on my own.
Yeah.
And like most corporate refugees, we find out at that point, it's not about doing the work of the work, it's about selling the work.
Yeah.
And that's the part I was terrible at. So I made every mistake in the book. I made the good ones twice, overspending, underspending, trying to figure some things out that other people had figured out long before me. And it was just a really tough road.
Yeah.
So I realized that the first thing I have to do, I have to figure out this marketing thing, and I have to figure out the sales thing. And one of my early mentors, because I just dug in, I hired coaches, I read books, I took classes, it was endless.
It's what we all do.
One of my early sales mentors said to me, David, you're really a good student. You are really focused on being a good salesperson. He says, I want to redirect your efforts. He says, focus on being a good person and more sales will happen. And when he said that, it was like the sky opened up and I was like, oh, I've been doing this all wrong, right? So I need to be more authentic, a better listener, more caring, more curious. And that's what really turned the key. So then I started to have some success. And about 5 years into this, other people, my peers, my colleagues, my friends were going, hey, how'd you get that big corporate training contract? Hey, how'd you land that big consulting gig? Hey, how'd you write your first book? Hey, how'd you start your podcast? And so I'm having a lot of breakfast, lunch, coffee, dinner with some of these people because they were good people asking good questions. So I figure, okay, I'll share the wealth. And then a friend of mine who's still a friend to this day, he says to me, you should do this for a living. I said, do what for a living? Like eat bacon and eggs with you? He goes, no. You should teach people how to do the B2B marketing and sales and how to, develop this empire with the online courses and the books and the podcasts and the programs. And Phil, I laughed at him.
Yeah.
You have a typical origin story for a lot of entrepreneurs. I said, no, 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 that is a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Not doing that. Entrepreneurs are broke. I look back to where I started. It's like, oh my God, broke, clueless, lost, hopeless. And I said no to him. And he finally persuaded me. He said, listen, I'm telling you how I want to give you money, and you're not letting me. That was another big entrepreneurial lesson, is that when people tell you how they want to give you money,
Oh,
you should
yeah.
probably listen. You should probably listen. So he became one of my very first clients, and then it snowballed from there. And as you mentioned very kindly in the intro, I've written 3 books. Now number 4 is out, this Market Eminence book, which is really about how to stand out, how to differentiate and position yourself so that you are the safest choice, the lowest risk choice, the most distinct and different choice in your market. But that book was written specifically to answer one question, which is, how do we stand out? So we're
Mhm.
a founder, we're a CEO, we're running a startup. We look like, sound like, act like everybody else in our industry.
Yeah.
What does it take to get noticed in a very noisy, AI fueled world? And my answer to that was Market Eminence, which has 3 building blocks that we can get into. But the building blocks are basically visibility and respect and a brand preference.
Yeah, that reminds me of another friend of mine, a guy named Jim James, who has a podcast, but he's written a couple of books called The Unnoticed Entrepreneur, and
Oh,
he used, and I've done this too in my past with businesses. He used PR or stunts to get noticed, to get some earned media, to get his brand out there, his name out there. And so his whole focus is exactly what you're saying, which is how do you get noticed? And then I think of another person, Sally Hogshead.
oh
I don't
yeah,
know if you ever heard of her,
sure.
but she's all about how to be different and how to stand out.
Yeah,
And so, it's not just about your personal brand. It's also about your business brand, because you
very
have
much
to
so.
think the same way. Whether you're branding yourself, whether you're branding a SaaS product, a physical product, your
Yeah,
business, whatever it is, you've got to figure out how to stand out. So,
yeah.
yeah, tell me about Market Eminence.
So yeah, the let's dig into those 3 pillars for a second. Uh, there is so much AI generated nonsense. The robots are taking over the world. So there have never been more content being pumped out onto the interwebs by the terabyte. And of course, you got to remember ChatGPT, all of these amazing AI tools, they are great at computational intelligence.
Right.
And they're also great at pattern recognition and data aggregation.
Yep.
So when you're using ChatGPT to, create your thought leadership, when you're using ChatGPT to write the homepage of your website, when you're using these various tools to pump out your Substack newsletter, you are intentionally tapping into all of the wisdom that is already out there, and you are regurgitating. Now it could be fancier, it could be a little bit more in your style or in your tone, but it's still regurgitation.
Sure.
It doesn't have any soul. It doesn't have your war stories, your battle scars, your experiences, and your expertise. So the 3 pillars are, number 1, visibility. And it's not universal visibility. I think I get this a lot from my clients and audiences. Like, do we have to show up everywhere? It's like, you don't. You only need to show up where your most important clients, prospects, and audiences are. Everywhere else is safe to ignore. But you do have to be visible to the right people in the right places,
Yeah.
because nobody buys products or services sight unseen. So, job number 1 is to get seen.
Sure.
Second element of that is respect. Respect comes from knowing your target market so well that you know what their pains, problems, heartaches, headaches are, what their goals, dreams, hopes, aspirations are, and you can articulate them in a way that they feel you know them. That, in fact, that they feel not just that you know them, but you've installed video cameras in their offices, you've installed listening devices on their phones, and they look at your website, they read your LinkedIn post, they get your Substack newsletter, and they say, oh my God, Phil, I felt like you wrote that for me. I went to your homepage, and dude, you are talking to me. You are singing my song. And that's where respect comes from when they say, hey, you get me. And then the third and final piece of this is brand preference, which is that combination of differentiation and positioning so that you convey the idea that it's dangerous, risky, and dumb to work with anyone other than you or your firm, right? So I'll repeat that for emphasis because this is so, so important. It is risky, dangerous, and dumb to hire anyone else than Phil, for example, to help you with your entrepreneurial startup, help you with your entrepreneurial journey, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, there are other options, but Phil is the smartest choice. Phil is the safest choice. Phil is the lowest risk choice, and he's the only one that sells what you want to buy. So if we develop those three pillars of the visibility and the respect and that level of brand preference, that's my definition of market eminence.
Gotcha. That's an interesting way of looking at it. I'm not so sure how you get across the last pillar. I understand the first two, but the last one, I'm not so sure how you get that across, that it's risky to not hire. If you could explain that one a little bit.
Sure. So brand preference, the way I'm talking about it, with personal brand preference, right? I want to work with David. I want to hire Phil.
Right.
I want Phil on my team. I want Phil as my mentor and advisor. Only Phil has the secret sauce. That is not a universal message. So in other words, that's not going to appeal to everyone.
Right.
You're going to put things out into the marketplace. You're going to put out, content, webinars, videos, newsletters, this amazing podcast, this amazing TV show. And some people will love it. Some people will hate it. And some people will scroll right by it.
Right.
So I have good news. We're not concerned about the people that are scrolling right by. We're also really not concerned about the people who hate it. We're only concerned in powerfully magnetizing the people who love it. They love it. They want more of it. They are fans. They're super fans, really.
Sure.
They're super fans. They're subscribers. They're advocates. They're champions. They're people who are singing your praises when you're not in the room. So how do we get there? I think and it starts with the visibility piece. Because if you're just visible like everyone else is visible, this is not going to work. So my three-part formula for what you need to put out into the marketplace,
sure,
really everything that you do, is number one, we need to move away from how-to information. Phil, I got bad news. How-to information is dead. It is dead. It is finished. We got to stick a fork in it. It's over. Because AI can do how-to information 1,000,000 times better and faster and at greater quantity and volume than you and I ever could. So where does that leave humans? Humans are uniquely qualified to share insight. So how-to content is information. How to think content, higher level strategic advisory, insight-based content is a precious commodity. Now, where does this insight come from? The good news is the insight comes from your personal experience, your expertise, your battle scars, your war stories, what you've seen, what you've done, what you've learned, and that can only come from here. So this is not only a intellectual exercise.
Yeah.
This is also from your soul. This is from your lived experience. This is from the messy, ugly, vulnerable, authentic, transparent part of yourself that you're sharing what's really going on based on your hard-won knowledge, experience, and expertise. So that's number one, is stop doing how to, start doing how to think. Part number two of this, the second kind of content that is going to fuel your visibility campaign that builds your brand preference, is what to believe. So belief shifting content based on your personal and professional point of view. This point of view is so critically important because there are people out there that are making assumptions about your business, about your industry. They're
Sure.
making assumptions about who you are and what you do. They're making assumptions about all kinds of things because, we're sort of assumption making machines. Unless told otherwise, we figure, oh, well, one startup is like any other startup in this industry, right? One brand of cookie is like any other brand of cookie in this industry. One accounting firm is like every other accounting firm in this industry. So shifting the belief, separating the wheat from the chaff, really being an advocate for things that you're for, and then being a very vocal opponent for things that you're against. So in your industry, with your target market, what is missing, funky, broken, and sad? What are the half truths and the myths and the lies that people still believe that are holding them back from actually getting the result that they want when they're looking at your particular kind of product or service? So that truth telling, that belief shifting kind of content is very, very important. The third and final kind of content is how to get ready for what's coming next. Right now, we're in such an environment of uncertainty, change, turbulence, tariffs, who knows where things are going with all these different economic forces, regulatory. The future is very murky, very uncertain, very weird. So, what does that mean? That means that people are naturally drawn to the people who are trendsetters and future pacers that will help them see 3 months or 6 months or 12 months into the future how not to get blindsided, how not to get surprised, how not to get ambushed by trends and things that might be coming next around the corner. So, high level people really hate being surprised. If there was something that they could have seen coming, but then has bitten them in the butt because no one warned them, no one told them, no one prepared them for what's coming next, those are unhappy campers. If you can do a little bit of that trend spotting and future pacing, so you're protecting your folks from what's coming next, you're acting as a lighthouse. You are the lighthouse, you are the safe harbor that is guiding the little boats in the harbor away from the sharp, dangerous rocks. You are lighting up the passage, the safe passage that will get them from where they are to where they want to be. And everyone loves the lighthouse because the lighthouse is clear, certain, and it cuts through the noise. So, those are the three kinds of things that when you start publishing and broadcasting and podcasting and speaking and writing and having TV shows like this one that help people in those three areas, much like yours does, Phil, right? You're telling them how to think, you're telling them what to believe, and perhaps more importantly, what not to believe, and you're telling them how to get ready for what's coming next. Now, if people are exposed to that over a very short period of time, with some level of consistency and certainty and passion
Yeah.
and energy, they're going to be drawn to you like a magnet. The other good news is the people that are not on board with what you're saying and what you're selling, they will never hire you, and you wouldn't want them to anyway, because there's a misalignment
Sure.
between who they are and who you are, their values, their vision, your values, your vision. And so we're going to equally repel those people. And that's how you build that brand preference. That was a long answer to a short question.
No, not at all. I mean, I think that was really good. And it also, it has application across not just personal brands, but business brands as well. And it's funny, I was smiling when you were talking about being the lighthouse, and I had a show a few months ago with my guest was a guy named Vern Harnish. I don't know if you ever heard of Vern.
Sure, of course.
Scaling Up and Rockefeller Habits, and he was the founder of EO and YPO and all
Yeah.
that. And I asked him, because there is a lot of uncertainty. And I get that question a lot from people. Okay, but there's so much uncertainty. And I always say the same thing, like, oh, the economy, it's blah, 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 blah. And I always say the same thing. The economy is just different. It's different. It's not good, bad. It's just different.
Yeah.
But Vern sort of summed it up and said, uh, I teach people that there's always opportunity. He said, and I use the philosophy. There was a Brazilian Formula One race car driver who said, you can't pass anyone when it's bright and sunny outside. But when it starts to rain, you can pass 15 cars.
Yeah.
And so you think about uncertainty as the time when it's raining and figure out how you can beat your competition, because what we see with a lot of businesses and a lot of the work that we do with selling e-commerce, selling online, selling on Amazon for helping brands to sell, there's times when they want to pull back,
Yeah.
and you try and get across to them that, hey, all your competition is pulling back. So if you pull back, you're going to miss opportunities. Maybe it's time to be a little bit bold. And it's
Yes.
the same thing when you have a personal brand. Everybody's starting to pull back, and you see just this, what I see anyway, this homogenization of messaging that's going on today.
Yeah.
I must get at least, and I'm not exaggerating, at least 15 different outreaches every day with people who want to do outreach for me.
Yeah.
And the outreach is terrible. And so why would I hire you? Because your outreach is terrible. But
Right.
secondly, when it started to bother me, I'm like, why is everybody out there trying to do outreach? Like, what's going on? Did everybody just sign up for Go High Level and take a course and, figure out how to do this outreach? But, we've been doing it for, 20 years for our company. But
Yeah.
it dawned on me. It absolutely dawned on me the other day, in the middle of the morning. I started looking at people's backgrounds, and I said, oh, they all had a business, like a marketing business or a social media business or whatever, and they were doing outreach, but they couldn't do it correctly. If they did, they'd still be in that business because they'd still be getting more business, but they couldn't. They did
Yeah.
that business for 2 years, claimed they grew it to 1 million and sold it, which is impossible. But so they learned how to do outreach. They failed at that business, so they figured, oh, I'll just sell outreach. But
Yeah.
the messaging is so homogenous. It's the exact same messaging, and I'm so tired of hearing it. And it
Yeah.
really drives me up a wall. And you lose total credibility, just total credibility. And there's no difference. There's no message difference in how they're going to do it. Everybody's going to 10x my business. And I always say the same thing. You're going to 10x my business. So if I'm doing $100 million, you're going to get me to 1 billion. Come on. How are you going to do that? So, um, so I agree with everything that you said. And it also sort of all flows back then, doesn't it, Mike? Doesn't it, David, to being different and
Yeah.
trying to take a different path.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right in that you can't waste your time on the people who are not going to listen to your message or not going to get your message. You can't convert them. You
Right.
can't change their minds. So
Yeah.
just leave them by the wayside.
Absolutely right. It's funny, one of the principles that I talk about in the Market Eminence book is that if you don't risk turning some people off, you will never turn anybody on.
Yeah.
And I remember I had a client from New Orleans. I was sharing this with him and just kind of explaining it in a very basic way. And he goes, "No, no, no! I totally get it. In fact, this reminds me of my grandpappy's advice." He had this amazing Cajun accent that I can't do, but he says, "This reminds me of my grandpappy's advice." And I said, "Really?" I said, "What did your grandpappy say?" He said, "Well, I was having some trouble in high school, and he sat me down once, and he says, 'Son, you ain't nobody until somebody hates your guts.'" And I said, "Well, I must have arrived. I must have arrived because there are people who hate my guts, and that's great. But if you don't have haters, you also don't have any raving, lunatic, maniac followers, fans, advocates, champions, referral sources, people who would go to bat for you, people who would tattoo your face on their bicep, right? I mean, that's the extreme. Someone who is a huge, huge fanatic. That's where the word fan comes from, by the way, is that you
Yeah.
are fanatically devoted to a person or a brand or a movement. And if you don't have the haters, you're not going to have the fans.
David, it's exactly the same in product marketing. I always say to people, everybody wants to get the negative reviews taken off of Amazon.
Yeah.
And certainly if you have a ridiculously high amount of them, you have a problem. But I always say, read the reviews and understand what the problem is and try and fix that. But it's not about getting the negative review. It's how you respond to that negative
Yeah.
review. But if you can't, it's impossible to sell a product and your service is a product it's impossible to sell a product and have 100% of the people like it. It's
Yeah.
impossible, and so eventually people are going to give you maybe a negative review, and it's a question of how you respond to that negative review or how severe that negative review is. If it's just, I got it, I didn't like it, it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't work for everybody. If it's a flaw in the product itself, if somebody's saying, oh, well, there was this problem or this problem, then you have to take that and you have to go back to the drawing board and fix the problem. But you're 100% right. You can't please everybody,
Yeah.
and you don't want to waste time doing it. But if you are getting negative attention, you're probably doing something right.
Yes, absolutely right. Funny story about Amazon, and I'm sure you remember this because it was a pretty profound change. Do you remember when, as an Amazon seller, as an e-commerce merchant on Amazon, if you got any kind of review, positive, negative, whatever, you could respond to the negative review,
Yeah.
right? You could say, "Hey, Bill, I'm really sorry it didn't work out, blah, blah, blah." So when my first book came out in 2013, I had some horrible one-star reviews. I have now 400 plus five-star reviews, still got some haters. And I said, "Well, what do I do with these? What do I do with these?" So here's what I decided to do. And I really missed that feature on Amazon about being able to reply and respond
Yeah.
to the reviews. But I said, "Hey Biff, I am so sorry that my book was a disappointment or did not meet your expectations. I really feel terrible. I would like to reimburse you not only for the book but also for your time. If I send you $50, would that be okay?" Now, I did this. There's probably a dozen 1 and 2 star reviews out of the 400 5-star reviews. Guess how many times, Phil, I got a request for that $50 check?
Maybe half a dozen.
Never. Not once. So either they weren't checking their inbox or they were just stunned. They were floored, like, "Oh my God, someone read this review and respond." Like there's a human being or there's an actual person at this company who cares and who's responding. So this
Yeah.
is where Google reviews, Yelp reviews, all of these things, if we were to humanize this, you would automatically be in the top 5% of companies because 95% of your competition goes, "Oh, we got a bad review." And they don't do anything. They certainly don't respond. And they don't respond with kindness, humor, and humanity.
100%, David. 100%. We had a brand that we were working with. They wanted to bury the reviews, and you kept saying, first of all, you can't anymore.
Yeah, you can.
There's actually laws now, um, and but more importantly, and I kept saying, first of all, you have to fix the problem because it was a
Yes.
consistent problem. So you have to fix the problem. But secondly, you have to respond. You
Yeah.
have to respond, and it can't just say, we're sorry to hear about the problem you had. We
Yeah.
have to do something that's going to get attention or that's going to calm these people down.
Yes.
And they just wouldn't listen. They didn't want to do it,
Yeah.
and it was really terrible. But then there's some brands that we have that always respond, positive, negative. They do things, especially if it comes through on their website. They'll do things like, "Oh, I apologize. Let me send you, so and so free."
Yes.
They're not going to send them cash, but they'll send them something free. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden the tune changes. "Oh, that's okay. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was da, da, da." And you wind up seeing this whole dialogue in there so that when people come, because no matter what, people always go to the 1-star reviews. They never go to the 5-star reviews. They always
Right.
go to the 1-star reviews. So even on your website, they see the 1-star reviews. If they go to the 1-star reviews and they see that somebody had a problem and they saw that you handled it and they saw that you were, nice about it, then all of a sudden that 1-star review it's inconsequential.
Yeah.
And so, we preach that all the time. And it's the same. It doesn't matter whether, again, it's your personal brand, your professional brand, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all about how you respond to people.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time on LinkedIn, even when I'll post something and people will send me nasty grams about, I was wrong about this. I go, okay, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Please,
Right.
please send me what you think I should have done differently.
Yeah.
you know, so there's it's what you're talking really about is just it's the fundamentals of branding,
Yes,
you know.
yes, yes. Well, and let me also, I'll throw this in and we can kind of kick this idea around. I think the reason that CEOs and founders and professional experts of any kind, the reason that they're hesitant to do this work around positioning, differentiation, using the three kinds of content, they say, well, you know, what if we get the hate mail? To me, when I hear what if we get the hate mail, there's some hard wiring that needs to be disconnected. And what I've identified is two very human characteristics. Number one, people want to sound smart. Number
Yeah.
two, people want to be liked.
Yeah.
If you can disconnect those two things, let go of the need to always sound smart, let go of the need to always be liked. Because when you quote unquote sound smart, you're looking at your competitors. Well, what are they saying? What's on their website? What's their return policy? Let's just do that because they're a more established brand. And you are literally, you are copycatting your way into quote unquote sounding smart because a more established CEO, a more established brand, a more established company is doing it a certain way. You admire them, you copycat what they're doing. Now you're in the smart club and you're actually in the dumb club, but that's a separate thing. I want to be liked. I want to be liked means let's cast as wide a net as possible, right? We don't want to just sell cookies or licorice or accounting services to a very narrow segment. We want to be Oreos. We want to
Yeah.
be loved by everybody. By the way, there's people who hate Oreos, just so you know. The vegans love Oreos because you might not know Oreos are vegan, but I digress. So think about where in your marketing, where in your communication, where in your day to day activities do these two tendencies show up? Number one, we want to sound smart. So we end
Yeah.
up sounding like, looking like, and acting like everybody else. Number two, we want to be liked. We want to be liked by as
Yeah.
many people as possible. And so what you're doing is you're intentionally bringing in some of the bad fits. Just like you have a giant fishing net, you're going to catch, rusted car bumpers and old tires and old bags of garbage. You want to go very specifically into the fishing holes that have your kind of fish with your kind of lake in your kind of boat and your kind of bait, and so you catch the right fish consistently. And sometimes this is such a challenge because as soon as we say, okay, if you don't risk turning some people off, you'll never turn anybody on, some CEOs get nervous. They go, well, now hold on, hold on, hold on. And I say, no, I'm talking about let's do a different metaphor. Let's say we build a really strong electromagnetic fence around your whole company, around your whole enterprise. And this fence is specially designed to pull in all the best fits and to keep out all of the bad fits. And they still look at me, a little squinty-eyed, a little bit nervous, and I go, let me make this real for you. And we take out a whiteboard and I say, give me a description of a bad fit prospect or a bad fit lead or a bad fit client. Well, they come in, they micromanage, they nickel and dime everything. They try and price us down. They're never happy. They're rude to my team. Okay, got it. How about terrible employees? Oh, terrible employees. Well, they come in late, they leave early, they do the minimum, they're just checking the box, they don't believe in our mission, they're not aligned with our values. Okay, I write all this down, Phil, and I say, okay, let me repeat what I just said. We're going to pull in the best fits and we're going to repel the people that have all of these traits, behaviors, characteristics, and values. And I want you to look at this list right here. And they look at the list, Phil, and I can see their body language just sort of softens. And they look at it and they go, wow, that would be great. If we never had to deal with those kind of people again, never had to deal with those kind of clients, those kind of employees, those kind
Yeah.
of partners, those kind of vendors, those kind of investors. If we never had to deal with that kind of person again, that would be awesome. And then I say, I know, right? Welcome to Market Eminence. That's what it's about.
Right. That's funny, David. That's funny to me because on two levels. One, I always preach to entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, whatever. It's okay to be aware of your competition, but don't try to be like them, because if you try to be like them, you lose your difference.
Yeah.
So if you're copying what they're doing, then you just look like them,
Yeah.
and you can never win that game. But the second piece is, if you don't have an ideal customer, if you don't know who your ideal customer is, then you can't market correctly.
Yeah.
So if you think that and I've heard this, I was in the shaving business and we used to hear it all the time. People go, "Oh, well, your market is everybody." And it's not. And people would ask me, who's your core, who's your market? And I'd say it's men and women under the age of 45 and over the age of 25. And the reason was, those people, that group, that segment in shaving, because everybody was, oh, everybody shaves. It's true, everybody shaves, but you're not going to convert a guy who's 50 because he's been using a three blade razor for 40 years and
Yeah.
he's not going to change. But somebody who's 40 years old or 35 years old is going to try and do something new. Same thing with women. Women are always looking for something new. But once you get to a certain age and you've been using the same razor for a certain period of time, it's going to be difficult to change those people.
Yeah.
So why are you going to try? Why try and convert somebody that it's difficult to convert? And it's the same thing when you're doing a personal brand, when you've got a service. There's people out there that just don't want the service or don't understand the service, or are
Yeah.
never gonna. So how can you can't waste your time trying to convert somebody?
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. It's never worked forever. And I see it all the time on social media where people are trying to change somebody's mind. You're never going to change their mind. Just go, move on to what you're,
Yes.
to the next thing.
So that's such a great topic. I think, you look at a lot of these companies. It could be a SaaS company, it could be an e-commerce company, it could be a professional services firm. What are they concerned with? They're concerned with churn. They're
Yeah,
concerned with retention. They're concerned with customer lifetime value. And they're trying to solve these problems on the back end, right? As opposed to, okay, what's our strategy? Right? What's our strategy? What is our ideal client? And how come we're bringing in these people who leave after 3 months? How come we're selling to people who stay for 5 months instead of 3 years? And it's like, well, let's solve the retention problem. Let's solve the churn problem. We got to jack up our customer lifetime value. You can't fix it on the back end because you're dealing with the wrong people. So
right.
who are you attracting on the front end, and who do you need to start repelling on the front end? So the 3 month price shopper, tire kicker, goofball doesn't even sign up for the free trial.
That's right. 100%. I can't tell you how many times um, we preach to clients. Well, first we ask who your who's your ideal customer profile. What's your ideal customer profile? And it's amazing to me how many established companies, brands that are 50 million, 100 million, don't really know.
It's
They
true.
they have an idea, they have a guess, but they
Yeah.
don't really know. And that affects your marketing because, especially the way that we do it, especially when you're dealing with advanced programmatic, because if you don't know exactly who your customer is, then you can't deliver ads correctly to them and you can't even
Sure.
write good ads. And um, so I can relate to this entire piece uh, on multiple levels. But the other thing that I wanted to say, which I think is funny, we most of our clients are consumer products or SaaS products. That's mostly consumer products. That's what we are. We do have some SaaS clients, but we have one industrial client. We got them, 7 or 8 years ago. They asked us through a friend to run some ads to get for employment for
Yeah.
drivers. They're they needed drivers for concrete trucks delivery, and they're a huge company, huge, but they're family owned by one guy. And it's amazing to me. He's a guy that started the company in 1973. He's just a construction guy. He's built this massive company. They do huge construction projects for the government, for the United States government. They do. huge buildings for uh, colleges and universities around here. But they go from Pennsylvania all the way down to Virginia, and then west to West Virginia.
Yeah.
And that guy, he will not take, he won't entertain offers, or he won't entertain business from companies that come to him that he deems are not a fit. And he'll just say, no, I don't want their business because they're going to, do this. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. I've seen it before. I don't even want to waste our time doing it.
Yeah.
And it cracked me up because he's the only person that I've met in business that has the nerve, the cojones to say, I don't want their business
Yeah.
because they're not our ideal customer. And this is a guy who's not the most sophisticated human being in the world, but he knows his business. He knows his customers.
Yeah.
He knows where he's going to get the best return, and those are the people he wants to focus on. So and he does. He has long-term relationships with just some of the biggest developers in the country that come here to build stuff, and he wants to work with them because it's fair on both sides. They work well together. But yeah, and it's amazing to me because, again, it's a whole different business, but the folks that have all this data on the consumer product side, that are pulling all this data and have access to all this data, they have no concept of who their ideal customer is.
Yeah. It's very hard to hit a target that you cannot see.
Right.
Right. So you're blindfolded and you're just shooting arrows left and right and all of this. But I want to go back to your trucking guy, because that is number one. That's fantastic and good for him. One of the concepts around market eminence is that we need to stop being so needy. We need to stop chasing. We need to stop convincing. We need to stop persuading. Like you said a moment ago, Phil, this is not a religious conversion exercise. So when we build the market eminence strategy and implementation and all of this stuff, I say this is your moment where you flip the switch from chasing, persuading, and convincing to doing what your trucking guy has done, which is now we have the luxury of filtering and sorting. We're
Right.
filtering and sorting who gets to come in, who gets to do business with us, not from a place of arrogance or complacency or superiority, but just knowing where and how and with whom we do our best work. That is so critical. Imagine if you ran a restaurant and you had a seafood vendor, and like sometimes the fish is amazing. It is gourmet, delicate, wonderful, amazing. And sometimes the fish, well, it's a little bit funky. And Monday you get a good shipment, Tuesday not so great, Wednesday it's good again, Thursday it's amazing, Friday a little smelly. It's like, wait a second. I'm not buying fish from you. This is a crazy concept.
Right.
But when we this guy is going to be an ideal customer. This is an ideal client. And then, oh yeah, well, he's okay, but he's got money, he's got a check, so let's go ahead and sign him up. Terrible idea. So we need to stop chasing, persuading, and convincing. Market eminence gives you the keys to the kingdom, where you can now be in the driver's seat, pun intended, with your trucking client, and literally be in the business of filtering and sorting, saying, yes, please, come on down, and no, thank you, we are not a fit. That guy was ahead of the game, and I think he's going to be, probably already is, as you were describing, massively successful.
Oh, huge. One of the, I can't even tell you. I mean, we've expanded. We started out with them, I think 7 or 8 years ago, just running ads for employment. We've turned it into, we turned on their social media, because I said, this is going to help with employment, when your own people are going to start talking about how good the company is.
Yeah.
So that's going to help, which has in fact happened. But we also, he realized that everybody thought that he was a small little company when he was massive. And he wanted that message to get out there. So we literally are doing connected television ads. We have billboards up. We have stuff going on at the airports because developers fly in. He wants every developer to know who he is.
Yeah.
He's got the cranes that are up when they're building these massive buildings now have his brand across them, and so it's turned into this one of my favorite clients that we have
Yeah.
because they are so focused on who they are and what they are
Yeah.
and exactly who they're going after.
Yeah.
And it's very strategic for us. So it's honestly a little bit outside of our world because we're consumer people.
Right.
We understand consumers, but we're doing a great job for them and we enjoy it.
Yeah.
So,
And the guy also sounds like a bit of a character.
oh my God, I could tell you stories. But one of the greatest people I've ever met, one of the nicest people I've ever
Yeah.
met, and a genuine human being. And he does things. He's not. He's very involved in his community, and he gives back to his community in a massive way. And
Mm,
he's a fantastic guy. Doesn't do this for the money. Doesn't care about money. Just
yeah.
he's still out there every morning. He's rebuilt the truck that he started with in 1973 10 times. Still drives it. Doesn't care. He's more interested in building than he is anything else.
That's so great.
Yeah. So, um, but we're closing in on the end. So we've got to figure out a little bit of a give back at the end. What are some final thoughts for any entrepreneur out there, whether you want to build your personal brand, your business brand, whatever it is?
Based on what we just talked about, Phil, my encouragement to folks is action eliminates fear. If this sounds a little bit exciting, a little bit intriguing, but ooh, it's scary, turning some people off, turning some people away, being choosy, filtering and sorting, all of this wonderfulness we've been talking about, take the first baby step. Take the first step in developing that contrarian point of view, shifting beliefs, how to think, how to get ready for what's coming next. Humanize your next blog post. Bring this kind of authenticity and this point of view into your next sales conversation. If you're podcasting, if you're a podcast guest, if you're a founder or a CEO that is on podcasts every once in a while, drop this into your next interview. If you have a Substack newsletter that goes out, or just a client newsletter, a client email that goes out, put a little contrarian twist in that next issue of your newsletter, and you will see amazing things start to happen. You will get fan mail, and you might get one or two pieces of hate mail. If you don't get hate mail, you're doing it wrong. And I would just encourage people, action eliminates fear.
Yeah. Well, business is scary,
Yeah.
and it's funny you say that. I wrote I something happened last week and it just aggravated me and I wound up writing a post on LinkedIn about it. But it was just all me just spewing. I was mad.
Yeah.
And at the end I wrote, I don't know, maybe I'm just cranky or something. And it was just it was I just typed it out and posted it. And it was my best performing post in like the last 2 years.
That is a fantastic example of market eminence in action.
Yeah, it was funny, but I did get different views from people going, you're wrong. And I was like,
Yep.
oh, well, I could be wrong.
That's how
I
it
could be
works.
wrong. Well, David, I appreciate you coming on. Great conversation. The time flew by, but it's unfortunately time to end it. So how do people get in touch with you? Where do they find you? And
Sure. So the best place to go, we have a whole bunch of free resources, downloads, worksheets, training videos at marketeminence.com. You don't need to buy the book. You can just get the free resources. But if you're inspired to buy the book, that's there as well. And it will help you get started on your market eminence journey with a couple of baby steps to get you rolling.
fantastic. And then obviously you're on LinkedIn or you've got,
Yes.
and you have another website, don't you? Or is
Yes, my
this
main website is doitmarketing.com,
yeah.
and that's where the podcast and some other free resources are. So you can go either place, marketeminence.com, doitmarketing.com.
So there you go. If you want to get in touch with David, you can reach out to him there. I'm sure you can find him on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was a great conversation. I appreciate it. We covered a lot from why being good is no longer enough to how founders and CEOs can build real market eminence. become a category of one and stop racing to the bottom on price.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this and you think that's exactly what I need, do yourself a favor, grab David's new book, check out his podcast, connect with him at doitmarketing.com. All the links will be in the description. And if this episode sparked an idea for your brand, hit subscribe, share it with a founder who needs to hear it, drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. I'm Phil Masiello. This is Crunching Your Growth, where we turn real world experience into real growth moves. So I will see you on the next episode.